Hello, and welcome back to Mellifluous English. Today, we are diving into one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries, the tragic story of the Lost Colony of Roanoke. This video is perfect for intermediate learners who want to improve their listening skills and expand their vocabulary through historical storytelling. Before we begin our journey into the dark forests of the New World, let's look at a few challenging words that will help you understand the story perfectly. Let's get started. Voyage. A long journey, especially by ship across the ocean. Settler. A person who goes to live in a new, often wild country or area. Wilderness. A wild, natural area of land where people do not live and nothing is built. Hardship. Something that causes difficult, unpleasant, or painful living conditions. To endure. To suffer through something difficult, painful, or unpleasant with patience and strength. Hostile. Unfriendly, aggressive, or acting like an enemy. Abandoned. Left behind, empty, and no longer used or wanted by anyone. Fate. The things that happen to someone, especially power or forces that cannot be controlled. To carve. To cut letters, pictures, or shapes into a hard surface like wood or stone. Clue. A sign, object, or piece of information that helps solve a mystery or find an answer. In the summer of 1587, a group of brave English families set sail across the dark and dangerous Atlantic Ocean. There were over 100 men, women, and children on board. They were not soldiers or gold seekers. They were ordinary people who wanted to build a new life in North America. Their leader was a talented artist named John White. After a long and exhausting voyage, their ships finally reached the shores of Roanoke Island, located off the coast of modern North Carolina. The island was beautiful, covered in thick green forests, but it was also silent and deeply mysterious. The settlers had to work quickly to build wooden houses and prepare for the cold winter. At first, they felt hopeful about their future. Just a few weeks after their arrival, John White's daughter gave birth to a baby girl. They named her Virginia Dare, and she was the very first English child born in the New World. It was a moment of pure joy. However, the initial happiness did not last long. The settlers soon realized that life in the wilderness was incredibly difficult. Their food supplies were running low, and they did not know how to farm the unfamiliar soil. To make matters worse, relations with some of the local Native American tribes became tense and dangerous. The colonists felt lonely and constantly threatened by the surrounding forest. John White knew that his people could not survive the winter without help. After much discussion, the settlers begged him to return to England to bring back food, tools, and more people. White did not want to leave his family, especially his newborn granddaughter, Virginia, but he had no choice. In late August 1587, he said goodbye and sailed back to Europe. Before leaving, he made a serious agreement with the settlers. If they had to leave the island due to danger, they had to carve the name of their new location on a tree or a post. When John White arrived in England, he hoped to return to Roanoke immediately. But fate had other plans. A massive war broke out between England and Spain. The Spanish Armada, a huge fleet of warships, was preparing to attack. Queen Elizabeth I ordered that all English ships must stay to defend the country. No ships were allowed to travel to America. White was trapped in England for 3 long years, unable to help his family. He spent every day worrying about his daughter and granddaughter, wondering if they were still alive. He tried many times to find a ship, but the war made transport impossible. The years passed slowly, and the silent forests of Roanoke remained far away, untouched by any English ships. It was not until 1590, as the conflict shifted, that White was finally able to join a rescue expedition. He was eager to return and discover the truth. In August 1590, exactly 3 years after he had left, John White finally returned to Roanoke Island. The weather was dark and stormy. As the rescue boats approached the shore, the sailors saw smoke rising from the trees, which gave them hope. They blew trumpets and sang English songs to let the settlers know they had arrived. But no one answered. The island was completely silent. When White stepped onto the land, his heart sank. The place was totally empty. The houses had been taken down, and the entire area was overgrown with grass and weeds. There were no signs of a struggle, no bodies, and no graves. It looked as if the people had simply packed their things and walked away. The silence of the forest was heavy and cold. White ran through the abandoned settlement, desperately calling out the names of his loved ones, but only the wind replied. As John White searched the ruined colony, he remembered their agreement. Suddenly, he found a clue. Carved into a wooden post of the fort was the word CROATOAN. On another tree nearby, someone had carved the letters CROW. There was no cross, which was the secret sign of danger they had agreed on. This meant the settlers had probably moved to CROATOAN Island, which was located about 50 miles south and was home to a friendly Native American tribe. White was relieved and wanted to sail there immediately to find his family. However, the weather grew worse, and a violent storm damaged their ships. They lost their anchors, and their fresh water supply was low. The captain of the ship refused to go any further and insisted on returning to England. Deeply broken-hearted and exhausted, John White was forced to leave. He never returned to America, and he never saw his family again. For more than 4 centuries, the fate of the Roanoke colonists has remained one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries. Many theories have appeared over the years. Some people believe the settlers were attacked and killed by hostile tribes. Others think they tried to sail back to England on their own and died at sea. However, modern historians believe the most likely explanation is that the settlers simply joined the local Native American tribes to survive. They probably moved to CROATOAN Island, married into the tribes, and slowly became part of their culture. Today, Roanoke Island is a peaceful place, but the mystery still lives in the whispering trees. The story of the lost colony reminds us of the heavy price the early settlers paid to start a new life, leaving behind only a single carved word and a question that may never be answered.